Okay, welcome everyone to the Property Investor Show. Hi. I've been speaking here for quite some time actually. The first talk I gave at the Property Investor Show was around about 2003. I've been doing property since 1990. And here's the thing that I've noticed. Every 5 or 6 years or so, the game changes. The market changes, the opportunity changes, the financing changes, the taxation changes. So what you have to do is adjust your sales every now and then so that you optimize everything that's around you to make sure you're profitable and on top of your game. So every 5 or 6 years, things change. And quite frankly, we're at that point again, where the biggest opportunity in property that I see is around commercial property. And I want to lay that all out for you guys today, why that's the case and why right now, and why particularly over the next couple of years is it the time to act. A lot of strategies, I feel, are a little bit old hat. You know, HMOs, hugely competitive right now. If you want to do an HMO, you have to spend a lot of money doing on-streets everywhere and back-to-brick renovations if you're going to get the optimal rent, and that may not be the best way to deploy your cash. Things like rent-to-rent, you don't actually own the asset. You don't actually own the underlying asset. The people who change their lives through property do so by owning the underlying asset. Serviced accommodation and all of that, it is a very, very active business. It's certainly not a passive business. What I'm going to lay out today is a unique strategy that's absolutely right for today, which optimizes all the forces that are coming together right now. Because what I find as well in property, there are times in the sort of cycle where what you do has a lot more of an effect. The last time I saw a market like this was after the Lehman's crash between 2009 and 2013, the kind of deals that we were doing, we haven't really been able to beat or better until now. Because again, those sort of circumstances and opportunities are just aligning once more. So that's what I'm going to share with you today. Now, a little bit about me. I started investing in 1990. Background in management consultancy. I did property as a sideline to my corporate career. I mainly did flat conversions and building multiple blocks of flats to keep them for rental. Round about 2006, I did my first commercial to residential conversion. My area of choice was always North London. I find the capital values quite good and the yields were quite good in the early noughties. But the problem that we all had in the early 2000s was that rental yields became compressed, particularly in high value areas and London suburbs. So what do? Some people rose to that challenge by going up north. For me, going up north means Edgware or Cockfosters or New Southgate. I wasn't willing to go that far up north because I'd get a nosebleed, quite frankly. You know, yes, you might get some attractive yields in the short term, but the capital growth simply isn't there in the same way that it is in the higher value areas of London and the southeast. So my strategy was to stay in high value areas and to tackle the yield question or the yield problem. And I did that by finding commercial buildings and either fully or partially converting them into residential use. I did my first commercial to residential conversion of a shop on the Holloway Road in North London back in 2006. And back then, it required full planning permission, and it was a pain in the neck, quite frankly, absolute pain in the neck. Then in 2013, certain commercial to residential conversions became permitted development, which means you didn't have to go through the convolutions of a full planning application. That made things easier. But then on August the 1st, 2021, it's become easier still because there are more PD rights that allow you to do more things to more property types without going through planning permission. And that is an absolute game changer, and I'm going to share with you why in a mo. We'll get back to the video in just a moment. What is the most exciting opportunity in property right now? And that is repurposing defunct commercial buildings to residential use. Now, most people don't really know where to start, what to look for, and how to exploit these opportunities. And that's why I've prepared 90 minutes of free training for you to get you started on this wonderful journey. You can register for this free training at property-workshop.com. Join me on that free training, and I'll leave you to enjoy the rest of the video. Has anyone been catching Property Elevator? Has anyone not heard of Property Elevator? People are too scared to put their hand up, some of you. Property Elevator is a Dragon's Den style pitch show. It's on Sky Telly. You can catch the replays on my YouTube. Just scan that barcode, you'll be subscribed. So there are 5 of us angel investors on the show. And in Series 3, 25 entrepreneurs came on, and they pitched their property deals to us, and more than half of them got funded. But the interesting thing was that the most exciting deals were the commercial to residential conversion ones. Those were the ones that got us all 5 angels fighting against each other, competing against each other to do those deals with the entrepreneurs. And I'm going to explain why those are so popular. That's the link to the YouTube. I've done that. Scan that if you're not already on it. 46,000 subscribers, so they can't all be wrong. So we put out a lot of video content on that. So what's the problem right now? The problem right now is that there are more commercial buildings vacant than ever before. It was already going in that direction pre-COVID. But COVID has just exasperated the whole thing. There are more offices than we require. There are more retail units than we require. And that situation has just accelerated as we've come out of the COVID crisis. We also have a situation where there's a massive shortage of residential property. We need 300,000 homes. We're not even building 100,000 of them. There's a shortfall. People need places to live. The planning system is a pain in the backside. I'm sorry if there are any planners out there, but it's unfit for purpose. It's completely uncertain. You put in a planning application, you got no idea whether you're going to get planning permission in 2 months, 2 years, or at all. You have situations where you put in identical planning applications in one local authority to another, and they have different policies. Now, the thing with that is it makes life very uncertain. And it makes life very uncertain for the small-scale developer. Now, here's a stat for you. 30 years ago, more than 40% of all new dwellings in the UK were brought to the market by small-time developers like me. Today, not even 12% of new dwellings are created by small-time developers. Why? It's not the money. The money's out there. If you find a deal, the money's out there. I mean, Property Elevator shows that. Anyone with a deal that's worth sniffing at, all 5 of us are all over it looking to fund it. The money's there. The problem is the planning system, because no one wants to commit to a site when you haven't got a Scooby-Doo whether you're going to get planning permission or not. Now, big developers can fund uncertainty, but small developers can't. They don't have the deep pockets. So what's happened now, as I said in the very beginning, that a lot of commercial properties are becoming defunct. There's an oversupply. Now, the last time this happened was in the 1980s. We had factories becoming defunct as manufacturing moved abroad. But all these buildings, all these factories that became defunct in the 1980s, they were 10,000, 20,000, 30, 40,000 square foot. So you had people like Galliard Homes and Barratt. They would jump all over those. Now, Galliard Homes is not interested in a defunct Santander branch on your high street or a defunct William Hill office. It's too small potatoes for them. So what's going to happen to those? So I believe the government know all of this. They know that commercial is an oversupply. They know that there's a massive shortfall of residential. They know that the planning system's unfit for purpose. And they know that the smaller developers are the ones that are going to repurpose these smaller units. And what they've done to help us is they've brought in what they call permitted development. Permitted development is a light touch planning regime, which if you know what you can and can't do, means that you're good to go in terms of building out within 56 days. And that gives certainty to developers like you and me, which means we can commit to projects, we can get them funded, and because we're talking about converting existing buildings, we're not talking about building a new housing estate where you've got to build foundations, walls, roofs, everything. We're talking about converting buildings which already exist. They're already in locations where people want to live. The foundations, the walls, the roof, the windows are already up. All you're doing is internal reconfiguration. So with 56 days to get the consent, 6 or 7 months to do the build maximum, you're in and out of a deal in a year. And that's what creates wealth through property. It's velocity of deal flow, velocity of churning your money in and out through deals. If you do that, then you're on your way to doing very, very well in property. Now, there's a massive difference between the way commercial property is valued and residential property is valued. With commercial property, the valuation is dependent on the cash flow it generates. If it's full, it's generating cash flow. If it's generating a return, then that determines the value of that commercial property. With residential property, the value of a residential property has nothing to do with the rent roll. It's all to do with the bricks and mortar value of how many people want to live in that particular area. You know, if people want to live in Hampstead, it's the market supply and demand, market demand of properties in that area that determines the value. The rental value has nothing to do with values of residential property. Residential properties tend to be 3 or 4 times higher per square foot than commercial property values. So there then lies an interesting opportunity. Because if you can grab the right type of commercial properties, convert them into residential use, then you've got a massive inbuilt profit that you can gain simply by changing its state from commercial to residential use. These projects are also quick. When you're building a block of apartments from the ground up, it takes a long time. You've got to build foundations and walls and roofs and everything. When you're converting an existing building, the building's already there. The fabric of the building is all in place. All you've got to do is internal reconfiguration. That means you're in and out of these projects very, very quickly. You can be in and out of a permitted development scheme in 9 to 12 months because it doesn't take that long to get the permission and it doesn't take that long to actually build out the scheme. And in this market, or in any market, it's the velocity of money that is actually the important determinator in how much profit you actually make in this game. You can be flapping around in a scheme for 3-4 years, making the same amount of profit or less profit than doing 3 or 4 separate deals, shorter permitted development deals in the same time frame. And the other neat thing about commercial property is, which is not true for the residential property, if you buy an empty flat, it's worth the same as a tenanted flat or an owner-occupied flat. A vacant commercial property is worth less than a tenanted one because it doesn't have an immediate cash flow. So you're pretty much good to go. So if you couple this with buying vacant commercial units, which you can apply PD to, and develop into residential, you've got a little bit more of an uplift there. Now, I was talking about Property Elevator. A couple of the pitches on the show, and you can get these on my YouTube channel. It's a very interesting show because people come on it to pitch their deal. And then after they've done their pitch, if it looks interesting, the pitch dynamic changes. Then what happens is all the angels start pitching to the entrepreneur saying, we'll back your deal kind of thing. And the deals which are most hotly contested, where all the angels want to back these entrepreneurs, are the commercial to residential opportunities. And I suggest you watch some of these videos on my YouTube because I go through them and I break down the pitch and the angles and the opportunities, and you get to see a little bit more about what these are all about. So the game changer was really August the 1st. Now, I started converting commercial to residential buildings in 2006, and that was under full planning permission, and it was a pain in the butt. Then in 2013, they introduced limited permitted development rights, which made it all slightly easier. But on August the 1st, they extended the scope of buildings that you can apply permitted development to. And really, the market hasn't caught up with what's actually happened here. What we have from August the 1st is a simplified planning process called prior approval. You can just mug up on what these permitted development rights are. So you go shopping only for commercial properties that fit the conversion template to make you a profit. And then those are the only ones you focus on. The planners, those nasty guys in the planning department, have to turn around your application in 56 days. There's no sitting on their butts on the application and saying, you know, later, later, later. 56 days they've got to give you a response. And they've introduced two new permitted development rules. One is called MA and one is called G. Now I speak very fast and I'm going to go through this. I've got a free 90-minute masterclass where I'm going to go through live a lot more examples of deals done in 2021. So that's going to be on Monday night. You can register for it on that QR code and on the web link at the bottom. If you can't make it at 8 p.m. on Monday night, register for it. We'll send you the video replay the next day. So I've only got a limited slot at the moment, so I'm skimming through it. I'm talking very fast, but we're going to deep dive into exactly what these MA and Class G rights allow you to do. And I'll share with you a lot more examples of what we're actually doing with these rights currently right now. So these are the types of buildings that you can convert to residential. Retail shops, banks, travel agents, estate agents, restaurants, offices, GP clinics, gyms. There's a huge range of property types you can convert partially or fully to residential without having to go through convoluted planning permission. Now people ask me, well, I found this pub. And I say, well, that's very good, let's go and have a drink. Don't buy it and convert it. There is no permitted development on pubs. It will take you 2-3 years to get anything done with the pub. It's not worth it. There's so many buildings that you are under this light touch regime. Stick with the building types on this page. People ask me about churches. What can you do with a church? God knows. It's full planning application. It will take you years. You know, stick with the building types on this page. If you know what you're doing, if you understand the PD rules, you can get your permission in 56 days and get those deals done. Now, I believe, where I have fun in property is first mover advantage. As I said, in 2013, they brought in the first round of PD, permitted development. Between 2013 and 2015, there was a lot of fun to be had. Commercial agents didn't know about this stuff. Auctioneers didn't know about this stuff. Vendors didn't know about this stuff. So you could have a lot of fun in that market ignorance. It was bliss. What happens is, as time goes on, everyone begins to know. You see, when this is in 1 year's time, when this sort of stuff is in the rear view mirror, then more and more people will know about this stuff, and then you'll find that the potential of what you can do with permitted development will start getting baked into the asking prices, yeah? Now, that is the value of being a first mover in this game. Now, the other thing is, with all permitted development that's ever come out, the legislation is drafted in Whitehall, and I don't think they've got a Scooby-Doo what they're doing anyway. And it's always drafted full of loopholes and anomalies. For loopholes and anomalies, translate that to entrepreneurial opportunity for first movers. Because all these loopholes and anomalies get plugged sooner or later. Anyone that's been doing permitted development since 2013 will know about the subsequent revisions to the rules that were brought in 2015, 2016. The wings of what you could do were clipped as time went on. So this will happen again. What we have is a few pages of permitted development legislation that apply to every building type, from a bank to a restaurant to a GP surgery. How can one piece of legislation apply to so many building types? It's full of anomalies to exploit, to put your boot in the door and profit from this first mover advantage. Now, local authorities hate this. Local authorities hate permitted development, and they will fight back. And the instrument they will use to fight back is known as the Article 4. And they will apply for Article 4s to exclude them from these national permitted development rights. They will apply for these Article 4s very, very soon. Now, some of the London councils have already put the wheels in motion to apply for Article 4 exemptions against some of these PD rights. The thing is, they have to apply to the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State has to look into it first of all, and that takes a process. And even if they give it to them, the local authority has to put the public on 1 year's notice before the Article 4s come into place. So just like 2013, you've got a couple of years. The people that get out of bed early have got a couple of years to profit from this opportunity. Now, I live in Rickmansworth, Hertfordshire, and these rules came in the month of August. And as I said, no one knows what's going on. I just took it upon a bit of a challenge to find a Class G and a Class MA deal within 15 minutes of where I live, because they're everywhere, quite frankly. So this is a Class G opportunity. Class G allows you to build 2 flats above a retail unit with no planning permission, with 56-day prior approval process. So this is one that we just picked up. We completed on it yesterday. In my Monday night session, I'll explain what I kind of look for when I look for these units. I like deep units where you're buying plenty of square footage for your money. Because the more square footage you get, the more residential uplift you'll get when you do the conversion. So with this one, we're doing 2 two-bedroom flats, 56 days planning permission. We'll be good to go. We'll be in and out in 6 months, 300K profit. This was got through an agent. Again, the market has not baked in any of the potential from these particular conversion rights. This is one in Amersham. Again, we picked this up in August for the new PD rights that came in August the 1st. This used to be, this was quite good actually. This was a direct benefit from the Matt Hancock affair fiasco. Because when Matt Hancock was caught with his pants down, that was right in the middle of the Amersham and Chesham by-election. The Conservatives were going to win. Matt Hancock fiasco, Lib Dems beat them to the post. Why am I telling you this? Well, the top floor is about 4,000 square foot of offices, which was the parliamentary constituency office for the Conservative Party. They didn't need that anymore after the Amersham by-election. The landlord was a little bit worried. What's he going to do with an empty office? I don't want this vacancy. Enter stage left me. We buy the thing. Class MA, 4 flats, 650K in this deal, 10 months in and out, job done. Again, simple stuff. By the way, the great thing about some of these shops and uppers, which are in such plentiful supply, you redevelop the upper parts, but you've got income coming in from the ground floor while you're doing the project. If you're doing many new build construction projects, the project gives you no income until the very, very end. That's an interesting footnote to these sort of development deals. So, let me just take you a whistle-stop tour through the process by which we do these sort of deals. Again, much more on the 90-minute webinar we'll do on Monday. Just click on that link at the bottom of the page or the QR code. If you can't make it on Monday but you register, we'll send you the replay anyway. So, what we tend to do and what I teach my students to do is secure the site. You can secure the site with an option agreement. That's a topic for another time. or sometimes we just exchange contracts with 5% or 10% deposit. That's, of course, knowing inside out what we can and can't do with the particular site. And then what we do is we agree a delayed completion. I'm looking to secure the site, but agree to complete the purchase in 3 to 4 months. Now, that gives me time I need to put in my permitted development application. That takes 56 days. So I get my permitted development application, and guess what? Just by having my permitted development rubber stamped, I have got an increase in value of that property from the purchase price. We get a bridging loan then to finance the purchase. A bridging loan to finance the purchase. If the end values are okay and good, and I'll explain what the criteria are for good development values in a moment, but if the end values are good enough, you can also get 100% financing for the development out of the project. So it's a very, very powerful strategy, and the skill in this strategy is not necessarily having the funding. It's knowing how to find the deal. Once you know the essence of how to sniff out a good deal and put the systems in place to find them, the money will find you. I mean, shows like Property Elevator prove that. People come on, they got a good deal. You know, anyone investing in property is very interested in getting involved in a deal where there's something in it. And the conversion works. The great thing about these projects are that the foundations are in, the walls are in, the windows are in, the roof's in. It's internal conversion, so it's quick. You're in and out of a deal in a fast period of time. And when you want to take advantage of a market opportunity like right now, that's what you want to do. You want to be quickly in a deal, you want to be quickly out, you want to be refinanced, and you want to be good to go on the next one. And you want to do as many as possible in the next 3 years when the market opportunity is quite frankly here. Exit. Now, many of my students, what they do with their first few deals is they sell them on. When you're creating flats and things out of commercial conversions, aim to create flats which are appeal to the first-time buyers. They're very attractive, there's a huge demand for them, and they also benefit for first-time buyer mortgages. And that helps build people's cash pot. But what I'm a big fan of, and what many of my students do, is they keep them. They refinance them and keep them. Because CMOs are the new HMOs, commercial building in multiple occupation. What I mean by that is a building where you have a combination of commercial units or residential units all under one rooftop, but without the nightmare of regulation and compliance cost of running an HMO. So I'll give you an example of that on the next slide. Now, what I find is that when you do HMOs, these days you're having to do back-to-brick conversions, put in en suites, and spend a huge amount of money on refurbishing a property to get a decent rental yield in a competitive and often saturated HMO market. And then at the end of the day, who are you going to sell that HMO to? When we look at commercial units in multiple occupation, if we've got a couple of shops and 4 flats above, we've got 6 rental units, we've got diversified cash flow, and we've got single rental units that are let and forget through an agent, basically, without the intensity of having to manage HMOs and the hassle that all that brings. And what I find is that when you look at net yield, you look at commercial buildings in multiple occupation, the net yield is pretty much on par with the net yield of an HMO because you haven't got the compliance costs and the regulatory compliance costs of dealing with all of that. So this is one of our current deals. This is purchased at auction in 2021. You can look it up, Barnett Ross auction this year. The reason I'm saying that is because these deals are everywhere. If you knew the strategy, if you knew how to put the pieces together of this puzzle, then you could have fished out this deal at auction. I get about 50% of all the properties we pick up at auction because people don't know this stuff. So when with auctions, the person that wins pays the most on the day. So if you've got a plan for that property, which is better than the next guy's, then you can afford to pay more than the next guy, and that's why you win. So that's why auctions are really, really so easy. So here's the magic. If you want to develop a buy-to-let portfolio for free, without having any money tied up in the property, what you've got to look for is deals where there's 30% margin, 40% return on costs. So what do I mean by that? I mean, when you buy the commercial property, all your stamp duty and your finance costs and the cost of doing the renovations, yeah? You add all those costs together, and then you've got the end value of all the flats that you're going to make. The margin, you want that to be 30% or more. Why? Because if you want to keep that property, then you will need to refinance that on a long-term commercial mortgage. And guess what? You can borrow 70% loan to value. So if you generate a 30% margin, which you can do, I mean, this deal is more than 30%, and many of my students are getting much more than this right now because the market doesn't understand this opportunity. So as long as you're getting in excess of 30% margin on your deals, then you can keep them because you can exit out your bridging finance and all of that, refinance it with long-term finance at the end with a 70% loan-to-value mortgage and pull out all your funds, and you're good to go on the next one. And guess what? When you have got, this particular deal will net after mortgage costs about 5K a month. Now, with all the money pulled out of the deal, it's an infinite return on cash invested. How many deals do you need to do like that? And what effort is it to manage 2 shops, 4 flats, all given to an agent, let and forget? So this is the sort of thing that's happening right now. As I said, it's a relatively limited opportunity to get involved right now because in a couple of years' time, the potential will be baked into asking price. And also, I believe, these permitted development rules will start to see some revisions which will clip the pure, delightful benefits that we're enjoying right now. So I'm going to cover a lot more, and I'm going to cover a lot of examples on the webinar that I'm doing on Monday night. Scan the code or follow the link to sign up for that. If you can't make it and you register, I'll send you the video replay the next day. We'll cover a lot more examples. Anything that anyone's done in property pre-2021 is just not relevant. This is a new opportunity, a new marketplace, and it's a new sort of figures and all of that really count. So the examples that I'll be sharing with you are absolutely current, and that's what's absolutely key. Now, if you want to actually learn how to do this stuff, you've got to master 7 skills, and you've got to master them fast. You've got to learn inside out what you can do with permitted development. So you can read up the legislation, it's all on the government website, but you've got to translate that to what to look for to maximize the entrepreneurial opportunity. So it's like going to the marketplace with a firm set of requirements in your head about specifically what you are looking for, and so that you can easily swipe left on the stuff that won't make you money. There are loads of commercial property out there, and not all of them are good deals. There are plenty of lemons out there. It's about saying no quickly to the ones that are lemons and spending your time focused on the ones that will turn you a very good profit. And you need to learn how to find these. We get 50% of our deals from auctions, about 25% from commercial agents, and also direct to vendor. There are a lot of very scared commercial landlords out there where their long-term Santander tenant has just moved out and they've closed down the branch, and they never got into property for development. They live 300 miles away from the building. They were in it for long-term cash flow, and it's a complete shock to them that these sort of people are moving out. So direct-to-vendor marketing, we're getting double the response rate that we were getting 18 months ago from our direct-to-vendor letter-writing campaigns. You need to learn how to be how we are on Property Elevator. On Property Elevator, we don't know who's coming to pitch their deals. They come on and we just get their pack about 5 minutes before they come in to do their pitch. But you've got to master the art of not do. You can't get anal about analysis, should I say. You've got to be fast about it because you've got to know what to look for and how to say no to a deal quickly. Just get the ball on the green or near the green and then worry about putting it in the hole and getting it dead right. People too much of the time try to do a hole-in-one and they waste a lot of time with analysis and it just doesn't work. And there's some simple rules of thumb to master to do this quickly and efficiently. Now, I mentioned the key to doing deals where you put down the minimum amount of your own cash is to secure the deal and try to delay the completion by 3 to 4 months. You've got to know how to present that deals to vendors and agents and how to negotiate those in a win-win kind of way. And there are a whole bunch of sort of toolbox or playbook strategies for doing that, which you just need to master and decide which one's appropriate to the project that you're doing. Funding. It's a two-step funding approach that we do. So you buy the property with one set of funding, you'll use a set of funding to develop out, and then if you're keeping it, you'll use long-term funding to continue with it. Now, I do a lot of work with students of mine. They come on my training courses, they learn this stuff inside out, and then we get involved in funding their deals, because I teach people how to analyze these deals in the way that we do. And then if you analyze the deals according to the template that we've given you, and it shows 30% margin, 40% return of cost, you can do it yourself if you want to. There's no reason why you can't do that. But if you want some help, we'll get involved, we'll JV with you, and we'll do that deal with you. The Amersham deal that I showed you, that's a JV with one of my folks on my mastermind program. He found that deal, and that's one of the ones that we're helping him fund. Then it's about filling them. You get how to get the maximum cash flow from these CMOs. You may have all residential tenants. You may have a blend of commercial and residential. It's about getting the optimum cash flowing tenants out of the mix of units that you've got in your building. And learning about tax. I mean, you will leave plenty of money on the table. You lose plenty of money if you don't know about capital allowances, you don't know about VAT, and you don't know about whether it's a good idea to own this commercial property personally, in your own name, in a limited company, in an LLP, or in a pension. All four might be right for your next property purchase. You need to know the pros and cons of which vehicle is right for that deal and for you with your circumstances. So we're going to cover more on that on the 90 minutes with a lot more examples, 2021 examples in that session we've got on Monday night. Now I know I can see some faces who have been on my commercial training. I run an 8-week commercial property course where I take you through how to capitalize on this opportunity step by step. A lot of it's online, you get all the modules sort of up front. But during the 8 weeks, we do a weekly group coaching call where I give you a bit of mentoring and we also do some deal analysis. Because what I want to do with this course, or what my aim, is not just to give you the training, but to make sure you figure out how to implement it. And that's why we do it over 8 weeks with the group coaching and the like. Because if you don't implement it, I don't get a percentage of you coming to me and saying, hey, let's JV, funding and all of that. So it's very, very important to me that people who do this course actually apply it and learn from it. So when you've done the 8 weeks course, you're pretty much good to go. You've got all the knowledge, you're good to go. I do run a mastermind program where I have a group of people who are very, very keen on this stuff. A lot of these guys are full-time in property. A lot of my guys on the 1-year mastermind program, people have built portfolios with residential buy-to-let and they're looking to jump into commercial as their next game-changing moment. Some people have already made a start. But a lot of these guys are already full-time in property, and this is a far more intensive group where we live and breathe this sort of stuff. We've just secured a site now, quite a big commercial to residential site in Leicester Town Centre, which you'll see on our YouTube channel very shortly. And that's going to be a joint venture with about 16 of our masterminders involved in that project. So that's very, very exciting. There's £1 million in that particular project. And again, it's a former commercial building. The opportunity has not been baked into the asking price because people just don't know about what's possible right now. So plenty of ways to get in touch. I'm even on TikTok now. Ranjan Property is the extension. I see some laugh. I don't do the dancing. It's information on TikTok. But for those with a short attention span, I do sort of knowledge bursts. But on all this stuff, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, /Ranjan Property, you get a little bit of behind the scenes of what we do. And if you haven't subscribed on YouTube, get on there. We've got 46,000 subscribers, new videos every week on all sorts of stuff to do with property. So this is what I'm covering on Monday, 90-minute masterclass, plenty of live examples. Scan that code or the link. We'll be on for 9. It's live. I'll be running it. Free registration. If you're not free on Monday, we'll send you the video replay the next day. So, I know I've talked very fast because they've given me a tiny slot and I wanted to get through it. Okay, I think I'm bang out of time. You've been a great audience. Thanks very much. If you just follow me, I'll just be over there and we can just have a little chit-chat. Thank you.
High streets across the land are changing forever. Basically, there's an oversupply of retail premises. Shops are closing down, more are going to close down in the future. The government know this, and that's why they're introducing a light touch planning system which allows small developers to easily repurpose these buildings to residential use under a light touch planning regime called permitted development. Now, this is going to be the biggest revolution and the biggest change and the biggest opportunity for property investors that I've ever seen. And this is all coming into effect on 1st of August. So you need to know what's happening and what properties to look for to take advantage of these opportunities so that you can get in there and take that first mover advantage. I've got a 90-minute free masterclass to get you ready for August the 1st. Make sure you join me, click the link below. Whether you're a beginner or expert, we'll get you started.